Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to part 2 of the video series taking a look at a Reddit thread that asks the question, why hasn't one-page rules taken over the wargaming world? Now, in the last episode, we introduced the question. We looked at some of the first couple posts, which brought up some interesting reasons why it hasn't, and also some interesting things that have made it as popular as it does. Now, what I meant to mention in the previous episode, which we'll do right now, is that this was posted in the one-page rules subreddit, so very biased, all right? It's preaching to the choir. However, the fact that there are some criticisms means that players of one-page rules aren't just gushing fanboys, that there's still legitimate critiques that players can have of this particular game, which might help explain why it has indeed not become more popular, even though it's done pretty well for itself. I got to tell you, if I created a game and within a few years had the kind of reception that one-page rules had, I'd be a happy camper. Still, let's jump back in, take a look at the next few posts, and see what other kind of information the community has about why one-page rules has or has not reached the kind of success that it does. So here we are back in the Reddit thread, and the previous video we ended on this comment here where they were talking about the physical presence, and so this next post kind of picks up on that. So Unfair Office 3428 says, it seems like OPR could use a strategy to get into local game stores. GW products help pay rent, but OPR doesn't have anything there, it seems like. Well, it doesn't seem like it is. And as mentioned in the last video, until Broken Truth, there was no physical presence. The rules were all digital. The STL files are just digital. Like OPR only existed in the world of ones and zeros. Then PowerPop had this interesting comment that why not set up 3D print stations in shops? Sell a starter kit with pre-printed figures. It's not needed, but you can buy them all if you want. Now, they go on a bit longer here. They talk about the dangers of resin printing and the fumes, and they're right. I've always thought about this idea, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, is this the future of printing? That almost like Burger King, do you get it your way right away? Will 3D printing get to the point where you don't buy pre-made models, but instead you can walk in, specify what you want, they'll go in the back room and print it for you? Or maybe you place the order in advance. Basically, it's kind of like a mix of Etsy and a fast food joint and a local game store. And as far as the fumes and the toxins and all that stuff that he talks about here, he is absolutely right. But if that's the new business model, the game stores will change. Every game store has a back room, so they would set up a back room, they'd set up ventilation. I mean, it could happen. Any of you who play War Machine, familiar with Privateer Press, they have gone full 3D printing and have showed pictures of their massive resin 3D printing farms where they create all of their models through resin 3D printing. But anyways, we're still getting a bit off the point here. But Broken Truth kind of negates all of this discussion because now they will have a physical presence. All right. Puffin Stuff here says the community has grown rapidly, especially in the past year. Absolutely. Plenty of indie game devs would kill for similar levels of success that OPR has had. It takes time. And if you want to help, the best thing you can do is be a good ambassador to the game by having fun, showing fun games, approaching and convincing other people how fun the game from a positive approach. All right, folks aren't proofreading, but that's okay. Sometimes I don't either. Anyways, so he brings up an interesting point that up until now, it's been word of mouth, and it's been players of the game bringing in close friends, going to their local gaming group and saying, hey, who would be willing to try this out? This game looks fun. Usually if I hear someone complaining about 40K, I'll lean over and say, I've got a game you should try. And then Prodmad here underneath says, that's how I got into it, and it's the way I'm approaching the game. It's just so enjoyable, I want more people to experience it. And that's how you bring people into a game. So much can be done by cool models, cool scenery, but if you see people having fun, if you're at a gaming store and you hear dice rolling and the shouts and the lamentations and the cheers and all that, you've got to go over and see what's happening. And then if you see cool models, cool table setups, you're going to ask about it. And that's why Broken Truth might very well change the game here. Because if you see people having fun playing that game and they say, what are you playing? The folks can say, we're playing one-page rules. And then they can point to the wall and say, It's right over there. Whereas right now they have to say, yeah, you log into their website and you download this and you 3D print them all, and that can turn some people off. Okay. Now this next one. Animeo? Oh, okay. We got not a naysayer, but he's obviously taking the opposite answer here. There is so much wrapped up in why any game has failed to dethrone Warhammer. It's not just rules, which OPR does a great job with, but they certainly aren't perfect either. True that. It's also the actual IP involved. Okay, let's get into it here. Despite people getting very upset by the fact that GW slammed a whole bunch of content creators with cease and desists, the fact of the matter is that it was a smart business decision for GW to protect their IP aggressively. It's not just a tabletop game for them. It's the art, the hobbying, the terrain, the stories, the video games. The entire IP itself has created an engine for multiple methods of consumer interaction. You can consume GW media by watching videos on Warhammer Plus. You can consume GW literature by reading the Horus Heresy books or any other 40k or Age of Sigmar books. You can buy models purely for the models themselves. You can buy multiple armies to stay current on all of their codices. There are on and off ramps for literally any type of consumer that is at all interested in the world they have created. Despite what you might hear wargamers say, the rule set simply isn't what makes a strong business. Okay, well, I'm not a business major. I don't have a business degree, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. But he does have a good point. But don't forget, like that previous commenter said, GW's been around for 40 years, and that's how you build all of this stuff. Look at what he mentioned. Videos, terrain, models, stories. Well, one-page rules is starting to get a lot of that. They have stories. They have models. At least they're starting to produce pre-printed ones. They don't have a video game license yet, but you can play one-page rules on Tabletop Simulator. I imagine it won't be too long before some enterprising company, some small indie studio, offers to make a one-page rules game. I could see that within the next few years. So Animeo here has a good point, but how much of this is just a matter of time versus they have something that one-page rules will never have? So again, are we just needing to wait? Or is there something about one-page rules that no matter how much time you give it, it won't ever reach the same level that GW does? And part of me says, I kind of hope not, because I quit playing Games Workshop games. I still love their models, and I've never said I don't, but I quit playing their games because the game decisions were made with business mindsets, not hobbying or gaming mindsets. And it didn't feel like a company by gamers for gamers. It felt like a company of stockholders for the cattle. So on the one hand, no, OPR does not have that. But if developing that mindset is what it takes for OPR to become big and to challenge GW, then you know what? I'll be happy with them being the second largest tabletop game in the world, as long as they don't go that direction. Okay, well, he's not done yet. All right, then there's the B2B model that GW has really done well with. The fact of the matter is there's an allure and a community involved in interacting with your friendly local gaming store. The B2B model. It's not coming to mind what that is. If someone knows, put it in the comments. Okay, many people crave a safe space to play games and let loose. And by and large, you can't walk into almost any comic or game store that doesn't have a life-size cardboard Space Marine in it, or a Sigmarine, or shelves upon shelves of boxes of GW models and hobby supplies. They have a pretty good relationship with a lot of these stores and provide them with decent minimum advertised prices to promote sales. Okay, let's take this one here. There is definitely the benefit of knowing that wherever you live, if your city's big enough to have a game store, it probably has a Warhammer community. But that is a bit of circular logic. It has a community because it's the biggest game. It's the biggest game because it has a community. It had to get there somehow. Just a year ago, there was no one-page rules community at my local gaming store. It was just me occasionally meeting up with a friend at that store instead of up here in the kingdom to play a game. Now, every week, there is between anywhere from 3 to up to 10 people who have shown up for Wednesday night gaming at the local gaming store to play one-page rules. Now, that obviously doesn't mean we're inches away from taking over the world, but that was 1 year. And what that previous poster said, it's about being an ambassador, That's where OPR is right now. They don't have the momentum to just rely on their logo, their name, and their existing momentum. He has an excellent point about every game store has the life-size cardboard Space Marine on it, sure. But that comes with becoming a massive corporation that you can afford that kind of stuff. So, he has some points, but how much of it is just time? All right, moving on. OPR has a relatively cool Discord community, but it has almost nothing else. The story is sparse. There's not much in the way of content creators. The models are still a long way from competing with the level of detail GW provides. And then there's the real killer, 3D printing on a B2C distribution. Buyer to... I don't know. Like I said, I'm not in business. Someone tell me what those means. And a free rule set simply does not promote friendly local gaming store promotion. There isn't anything for the FLGS to carry. Okay, so now I'm getting... He's right in this sense. There is no reason for a game store to push OPR because there's nothing specific. At the same time, and I've made this point before, while there aren't, at least until Broken Truth, there weren't one-page rules box sets, you can sell everything in the store as one-page rules. So I don't think it's not that there's nothing to promote, it's that game stores aren't sure how to promote. How do you promote everything for one game when everything else in the store is, this box is one game, these models are just for this game? How do you turn around to people and say, anything you buy in here, you can play one-page rules with? It almost sounds like too much. It's almost as if folks who are wanting to get into the game, they like the idea of a nice, clean starter set. You want to test the waters, you buy this box, you'll get the rules, you'll get some models, and you can figure it out. Whereas with one-page rules, they throw you in the ocean and they say you can fish for whatever the heck you want. Well, if you've never fished before, that's a little daunting. So I can understand that. And then as far as the 3D printing, we'll that's another topic for another day. There's not much in the way of their lore. They have the cool Discord, nothing else. The story is sparse. Yes, and as I brought up previously, I think that's going to be one of the biggest hitches that One Page Rules has, because their lore, they want to make it different, but it can't be too different because of how much they borrowed from 40K. You can only deviate so far before you actually break your own lore. But if you don't deviate far at all, then no one's going to care about your lore because they're just going to play 40K. So that is a valid concern. And like I said, I think I want to talk to some of the content creators for OPR that are more in the lore side than I am to get their take on it. Now, that next bit, there's not much in the way of content creators. True, if you look for OPR content creators, right now we're in the dozens. Whereas if you go into 40K, it's hundreds, thousands, if not. And the big ones have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Like, it's huge. It's an entire industry, whereas OPR is very tiny. So again, he's bringing up valid points, but many of these points are just because it's young. So let's keep going here. It's really strange to me that wargamers who decry GW's egregious business practices don't seem to get this, or seem to take it out on their friendly local gaming stores, what they should be directing at GW. The business model that we all want, which is downloadable STLs for in-home 3D printing and a free rule set, just doesn't offer anything to our local stores. And you might be able to get the game off the ground with a good Kickstarter and a decent base for a subscription service. But you're going to reach a cap and have a hard time growing until you get storefronts to carry products. That's what you really need to compete with GW, and they know it. Well, who's they here, GW or OPR? So this paragraph is right on the money. I've actually, when I talked to Rob, if any of you have been listening to the Line of Sight podcast, I interviewed him in one of the first couple episodes, and he was a game store owner. He's been playing war games longer almost than I've been alive. And he's owned a number of gaming stores throughout his career when he's had the time to do so. And he mentioned that very thing to me. He said, how do I push it? There's no product to show people. It will take so long to talk to a customer and say, hey, we have this game, but before I can show you any models, what do you think you'll want to play? And if it's a person who's never played war games before, they don't know how to answer that. Whereas if you walk into a Warhammer store, they have a streamlined process of taking a new person and getting them into the game and the hobby without them having to choose everything. Instead, it's, here's two options, which one do you like more? So this is a very, very valid concern, but the release of Broken Truth takes care of it. So we will definitely have to see once Broken Truth comes out, depending how well that goes. And I imagine it'll get fully funded. That's not a problem. But will it have the kind of explosion that, say, Trench Crusade did? And just absolutely blow away their models and estimates, not their models, but the business model, blow away their hopes for the campaign? Or will they just make enough to let it run? That will be interesting to see. And also, I'd be curious, I don't think they'll release this kind of data, but how many people back, well, I suppose you will see it, how many people back the retail bundle that they're willing to sell? That will also give us an idea. Okay. Finishing off here, he's got a pretty long post. To be clear, I'm all in on OPR. I bought a full pre-printed 3K army. I'm going to paint up, and I'm going to take that and my old 40K Prime Brothers to 3 different friendly local gaming stores and try and teach people how to play. But I'm telling y'all, it's going to be tough to keep people interested. Whenever GW releases a new edition or a new codex that hits the shelf of everybody's favorite haunt, there just isn't a shiny new OPR box lying around. I take a bit of an issue there. Part of the reason I quit 40K is I got tired of buying a new codex every couple years. With that 3 to 5 year new edition business model that GW uses, and with their codexes getting more and more expensive, the idea of just to stay current with the game, I have to cough up $60 every couple years, that's what drove me to one-page rules. Now, the diehards, of course, they are going to be excited. New art, new lists, new stats. Yeah, it was exciting. When I was still a big 40K player, yeah, seeing your new codex was definitely something to get excited about. But when you've barely broken the spine on the new one, and they're already saying the next one's around the corner, that's when you look and you say, well, what the heck am I paying for? So I get that. The other thing, now that I'm thinking of it, my brain sometimes works a little slow here. Back up here, this statement that the models that OPR creates are a long way from competing with the level of GW. Yes, but that's not a bad thing. I've mentioned this previously. Detailed models are great, but not when you have to paint 100 of them. When I built that dwarf army last year, I bought it for Black Friday sale, painted it over the Christmas holiday, and got the whole army done within 6 months because there wasn't a lot of details. Whereas I still have a fairly good chunk of a Lumineth Realm Lords or Lumineth GW models because I don't want to paint all those scrolls and all that trim and all the design. It's just too much. So while crappy models aren't going to do much, that's for sure. But there does come a point at which the detail is actually counterproductive. All right, so my brain finally caught up on that one. Well, believe it or not, folks, that takes us to the 15-minute mark. And I don't want these videos to get too long, especially since there's going to be quite a few of them. This Reddit post is very long. We haven't even scratched the surface. So be sure to come back when we have the next installment of Why Not OPR. Until then, keep your dice on the table.